going to take it right to the floor and try to get it off. He doesn't have a lot of time here. Rashamel Jones running down tracks. He comes over and says we shocked the world. Folks, you got to believe, because just when people say you can't, you can.
You know, it never gets old, even though that was 23 years ago. Of course, that was the UConn Huskies when they're up with their big upset win against Duke in 1999, 77-74. And we have one of the members of that team. He was on the court for those final 5 seconds when UConn shocked the world. He had a tremendous high school career where he was a 3-time New Haven Register All-State. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year. He's a 3-time Big East champion. He was a Big East tournament team player. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you the one and only Rashamel Jones. And Rashamel, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's a real honor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you for having me on. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, that's awesome, Rashamel. And Rashamel, the story I always heard, and I could be wrong, but this is what I always heard, is that you really didn't have a love for basketball when you were in grammar school. You were more of a football, baseball type of guy. So just talk to me how basketball came about for you.
Well, you know, as a youngster, growing up in Mount Vernon, I was introduced to football. That was my first love. You know, I remember 5 years old, getting out there. We used to play tackle on the concrete. You know, that's how, we started. Mm-hmm. And, as I got older, playing modified football in middle school, I had that love, because I love the physical contact. I just love to put that equipment on, trying to, get after quarterbacks. It was just the whole game of football, just the physicalness of it. I actually loved it. And like I said, I was playing baseball at the same time. It's so ironic. My baseball coach was Mount Vernon High School's head basketball coach right now, Coach Bob Semino.
Wow.
Yeah, he was my Little League baseball coach. So, we have a little side joke now where, he always say, you got away from me, because, I would have went to Mount Vernon High School. So he said, you got away from me. You was one that got away from me. But like I said, my first love was football and baseball. And then as I kind of moved away from Mount Vernon, I started to live with my grandmother out in Port Chester, New York. And that's where the basketball came into play. I started to hang around more kids that played basketball. I was actually introduced and brought down to the New York City Gauchos in the Bronx when I moved with my grandmother. So that's where the love for basketball started. My first basketball team I joined, I think I was probably 12 years old for the Don Bosco out of Port Chester, New York.
Wow.
Actually, my first team at 12 years old.
Right. And, Rashamel, that's not 12 years old is a good time to get experience. But again, a lot of kids start to play when they're 8, 9 years old. So you were a little behind the 8 ball there, but it's amazing to me because anytime you hear about great players or great college players, NBA players, baseball, whatever it might be, there's always a story around it that sometimes that sport that they excelled in, they didn't really start off loving it. So it's pretty ironic how great of a basketball player you'd become because obviously early on, the passion wasn't there.
It's also funny. I'll tell you another quick story. Another good friend of mine, Randy Moss, he and I played together in high school, Nike camps. He's from the West Virginia area.
Yeah.
Jason Williams as well. I knew both of those guys in high school. And, to see what he did going out of high school, I followed his whole, college career when he was at Marshall. And to see him get drafted in the NFL and he didn't choose basketball, I was like, man, that could have been me as well. So I think, he chose the right sport. He chose the right sport down the line. There was a lot of guys like myself, like Randy, who loved the game of basketball, but, they took another route once they got to college. And, Allen Iverson, another friend of mine who actually his first love was football. If anybody know about Allen Iverson, he was a dynamite quarterback down there in Hampton, Virginia. Mike Vick looked up to Allen Iverson, so, it was a few of us that, that played, all sports, baseball, football, and basketball.
Right. And Rashamel, we're about the same age. We both graduated in 1995. So when I was a kid, I was a big Yankees fan, but I know how good the New York Mets were in those 80s. They had great 80s teams, especially 86. Yes. And I know you're a big New York Mets fan, especially Dwight Gooden, Darryl Strawberry.
Yes.
So talk about that growing up and watching the Mets, especially that 86 team, because you were probably 10 years old at the time.
Yeah.
That had to be awesome for you as a fan.
My grandmother, God bless her soul, she was a Mets fan. And, instead of watching basketball, I used to go in her room and sit with her and she's watching the Mets. So, I can remember, vividly, Keith Hernandez, Lenny Dykstra.
Yeah.
That I just remember those names, obviously Doc being my favorite of them all, because I was a pitcher as well. Strawberry coming second. Mookie Wilson, like all of those guys, they just had a profound impact on me, at a young age. And like, it came from my grandmother, like just sitting there with her watching those games. She never turned on the Yankees. She would just watch the Mets. And, and like I said, that's where my love came. And I just remember that curveball that Doc had was vicious, and I always tried to emulate that curveball, his changeup, his whole style on the mound. Because I was in probably Little League around that time. And, I tried to emulate his style every time on that mound. And when I got up to bat, I tried to be Strawberry.
Yeah, and Strawberry, what a player he was in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought he was on his way to the Hall of Fame. But I'll tell you what, you talk about a guy that was exciting to watch. I mean, every time he came up to bat, I mean, opposing pitchers, I mean, they cringed. That's how good he was.
Yes, he was. And he was big, too, about 6'5".
Yeah.
Another guy who probably could have played basketball, with that size on him. So, definitely Strawberry was my guy. Great outfielder.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And Rashamel, so the story I also heard over time is that your gym teacher in 8th grade he was going to Trinity Catholic and he wanted you to play football, and you kind of decided to go there, but football didn't really come about. The sport that really, came to pass for you was basketball. So tell that story.
Yeah. That's a funny story. I'll tell you, my freshman year, actually, even before my freshman year started, Coach Al, he was my gym teacher at the middle school. And he said after school one day, "Hey, I'm going up to my new place. I'm going to be coaching next year. You want to take a ride with me to see the facility?" I'm like, "Sure, coach." Went up to Trinity Catholic, and I remember the varsity team was in the gym playing. And so I walked in the gym. Coach Al introduced me to Coach Mike Walsh. And Coach Walsh was like, "Well, can he play?" Because Coach Al had to do something downstairs with his team, or he had something he was doing. So I just stayed in the gym while Coach Al went downstairs. And first play, as soon as Coach Walsh let me get on the court, I got the rebound. And their center at the time, George Johnson, he was about 6'5". He was waiting on the other end, trying to take a charge. And, I went coast to coast as an 8th grader, and I dunked on him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they were, they was like, "Oh my God, who is this kid?" So, right after that, they was like, "What high school you go to? Where you from?" I'm like, "Well, I'm from New York. I'm only in 8th grade." And, their mouths dropping to the ground. They couldn't believe I was only in 8th grade. And, from that day on, so fast forward a little bit, I'm into Trinity now, September now. And this is Coach Walsh comes to me and he says, "How many colleges do you have for football?" I said, "Well, Coach, I haven't even played football in high school yet. Season hasn't even started, so none."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, I just want to show you the interest that you have for basketball." And never forget, he had a hefty garbage bag. And it had about 50 letters, 75 letters, all D1, Georgetown, the UConns. And I'm like, man. So he literally threw the bag at me and said, "This is your future. Leave football alone." So,
wow.
Yeah. So, once I saw those bags of letters, I said, man, this is the way I'm going to go from here on out. So I kind of left football alone. Coach Al was upset with me. To this day, he sees me. And, I saw Coach Al, I think it was like last time, 2018, at the Fairfield County Hall of Fame dinner that they had down in Fairfield. And he said to me, he said, you were a great basketball player, but you were better at football. And he said, you could have been in the NFL. You got football hands. You got a football body. You was a football guy. And, that's our little joke that we have to this day. So, that's how I end up choosing basketball over football. Is once I saw those college letters, I thought it was real. I saw that I had a real opportunity, to pay for my education with my athletics. And, I wasn't going to try to tamper with it because, at that time, I wasn't really having too many people tell me, well, you can do both or you can do all three.
Right.
It was like, stick to one thing, concentrate on it, master it, and, let's see how it goes at the end. And, it turned out wonderful.
Right. And there were sacrifices you had to make. Number one, you probably had to wake up earlier for school because I believe you had to catch the train. You had to make sure you were at that 7 o'clock train. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, your day was really long because if you think about it, you probably wake up 5:30. Yep. You gotta catch the train. Yep. Then you go to school. Then you go to practice. Yep. Then you go and catch the train again. So, I mean, I'm sure there's times you weren't getting home till almost 7:30, 8 o'clock at times.
Oh, forget about it. Yes. And, a great friend of mine, Ellis Crawford, who actually is a year older than I, he played on the football team. So his father was a cop in Stamford, Mr. Ellis Crawford. He passed away a few years ago. God bless his soul. He was a mentor to me because there was times where, like you said, it was 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And Mr. Ellis didn't want to see me go home that late at night. He knew I was taking the train into Mount Vernon. So, he would call my dad like, hey, Mr. Jones, let him stay over the night. We got him. Yeah. He's good. He's doing his homework. He's fed. So, we'll get him home right after school tomorrow. So it was a lot of those nights, staying at my guy Ellis' house, right there in Stamford on the water side. And so that kind of helped out a lot tremendously. But like you said, on those nights that I didn't stay, I was getting home 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, getting right back up at 5:30 in the morning, do it all over again.
And it's funny, Rashamel, as I mentioned to you when we talked off air, I grew up in Derby. And I remember my freshman year, Derby played Trinity Catholic in football, and Trinity Catholic almost pulled off the upset up in Derby. And I was thinking about it when we were talking. And I was like, wow, if they had Rashamel, maybe they win that game. So, but that was my first introduction to Trinity Catholic. I had never heard of them. So it's amazing to me how you just identify them with that one football game, and then you realize they have this great player the next few years. I always thought about that, how cool that was.
It's so ironic that the quarterback on that team was Bobby Spillane. Bobby Spillane played basketball. Actually, I credit Bobby Spillane for winning the first FCAC for us, 1993, when we knocked off undefeated Fairfield. Freshman. I had probably 12 points. Bobby had like 28 points that game, and he was the difference maker. And he was the starting quarterback. Ellis Crawford, starting running back for that football team, was our forward. So we had a few football guys, big-time football guys that actually played on the basketball team as well.
Right, and that always happens in a lot of schools. I mean, schools usually will have great athletes and they'll play multiple sports, and that really is a big plus in building winning traditions. But Rashamel, the crazy thing too about you is your freshman year, you were already being recruited. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Like I said, I had over
100 letters, right? Yeah.
Letters, Coach Calhoun was coming to my practices, coming to games. Coach Calipari, when he was at UMass, he was recruiting hard. Coach O'Brien from Boston College, Bob Knight at Indiana. So, they all, Coach Boeheim, Syracuse. So, I was seeing all of those guys since my freshman year.
And now as a freshman, I know you're young and you got 4 years of high school to think about. But at the time, I mean, was there a certain college you kind of dreamed of playing for at that time? I mean, was there ever?
Well, it's interesting you ask because I was actually a Syracuse fan.
Wow.
Ron Cycli, Sherman Douglas, Billy Owens.
Even Anthony Harris from Danbury.
Well, actually, he wasn't on that team yet.
Right.
Derek Coleman, Billy Owens, those guys, I forget about it. I was a Syracuse diehard fan. But I didn't want to go there. I just love Syracuse. I just love how Derek Coleman and Billy Owens, Ron Cycli and those guys, Sherm Douglas, I just loved how they meshed together. I loved how they played. But when it came down to me deciding, I didn't have a particular school. I was one of those guys that, I just wanted to be close to home. My parents really couldn't afford, grandparents couldn't afford to fly Midwest or fly, to California. Or I said, you know what, I'm going to narrow it down to, Boston, Connecticut, upstate New York, Syracuse. The furthest I actually went out was Indiana with Coach Knight. He was probably the furthest school out at that time. So,
right. And let
I
me ask you,
close. I wanted to be close by home.
right. And let me ask you, Rashamel, obviously every kid in whatever sport they love, they have a person they look up to, whether it's an NBA player, NFL player. I mean, was there a certain athlete that you emulated as a young kid, even in high school, that you really liked watching?
I'm a New York Knicks fan. So, Patrick Ewing is one of my top players of all time. No, I really had my own style. I really didn't try to emulate my game after anyone, because I really didn't see anyone that kind of played like me. Obviously, I tried to be Michael Jordan. I can't even tell you that I didn't. There was times, watch Mike come to the Garden and, give us 55. You try to go out there and try to emulate the reverse layups that he did and, try to emulate that cradle rock dunk he did. So, if anybody, I tried to, take some things from Michael Jordan. But as far, Patrick, like I said, Patrick Ewing was right up there with Michael Jordan in my eyes, the Charles Barkleys. I just loved anybody who played hard.
Right.
Anybody that played hard, I fell in love with them, whether they were offensive weapon or not. If defense was the specialty, like Derek Harper. I loved Derek Harper. He wasn't a scorer. He was a team general.
Yeah.
He was a coach on the floor, but his defense was impeccable. That's when obviously the NBA still had the hand check in where, guys could manipulate you with that hand check.
Yeah.
But Derek Harper did it. He was one of the best at it. And anybody he guarded, it was a tough night for them.
Right. So let's talk about your career at Trinity Catholic, because Rashamel, I mean, it's not easy. They only pick the best of the best to make all state. It's not easy at all. And you made it 3 years in a row. So, I mean, that's a credit to your talent, but it's also a credit to your hard work, because you have to work hard, because you can't rest on your laurels. And I mean, just talk about play, because that's a tremendous basketball school. I mean, they've always been right there for many years. I mean, great coaching, great players. Just talk about your time at Trinity Catholic a little bit.
Well, the beginning, actually Trinity Catholic actually was Stamford Catholic. Well, Greenwich Catholic at first, and then it was Stamford Catholic. So both schools kind of closed down, and that's how Trinity became about. So in 91, that was the first year of Trinity ever existed.
Yeah.
We had we had John, who played at that was with Stamford Catholic, and he was actually the leading scorer since I think 1984, and
wow.
He was the man. I could just vividly remember walking down the hall, seeing his trophy in there. I still remember his points. 1,882 points he had. And, Coach Walsh used to always say to me, I think you can beat that score. I think you can beat that score. And I'm like, man, that was a lot of points.
Yeah.
So like I said, my time at Trinity was wonderful. It was not only a great basketball experience, but it was a life learning experience. Coming from New York in the city, getting off that train in Stamford, a lot of professional people. It was all new to me. Going up Newfield Avenue, right to Strawberry Hill. All that beautiful grass. And what was funny was my first time actually going up there. Remember getting off the bus, and I said to probably one of the administrators, some priest or somebody was outside. And I was like, well, I said, man, I said, the teachers must got a lot of money here. Because, I'm looking in the parking lot, I see nothing but BMWs, Lexuses, So I'm like, man, these teachers got a lot of money up here. So he laughed at me. He said, that's the students' parking lot. So I was like, wow, okay. He said, the teachers' parking lot is around the corner. So, like I said, I knew what I was up against. And, I knew that it was only going to be hard work. So like you said, before the season started, get to school. School was over by 2:10 p.m. I'm in the gym. I'm in the gym from 2:10 until they kick me out and saying, "Look, Rosh, you got to
Right.
go." Let me take it back a little further. What really prepared me for Trinity, for UConn, was just my upbringing. Like I said, I was started out as a football guy, baseball. I always played basketball, but I never joined the team. Like I said, my first team was at 12 years old. So by the time I was 10, 11, I was playing against grown men
Right.
in the parks. I was always big for my size, and I never played against someone my age until I turned 12 and joined my first team. That was the first time I ever played with kids my age. So I kind of had an advantage over them. I knew how to outwork them, how to outthink them, because the older guys were doing that to me.
Right.
I was quicker than the older guys. I jumped higher than those older guys, but they always outsmarted me. So I learned those little tricks as I developed my game. I learned little tricks from those guys and just implemented them in my game. So by the time I got to Trinity, like I said, my freshman year, I was averaging, I think, probably 26, 27 points a game. And,
Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah.
and I can recall I probably took my whole freshman year, I probably took 2 3-pointers. I was just, everything was just going to the rack. I used my physical gift to the best I could. And then every year, we had a Coach Smith, actually. Coach Smith played at Fairfield U,
Yeah.
and Coach Smith was one of our assistants, and he said to me, I ain't gonna never forget it. Freshman year, he said, "Rosh, next year they're gonna be ready for you to attack the basket. They're gonna pack it in on you next year. You surprised everyone this year. You got to get a jump shot." So I remember, he started to work with me on my jump shot, and forget it. By the time that my sophomore year rolled around, I developed a nice little jumper. Next year I would add on maybe some handling. So every year I tried to add on something to my game because I knew that, they'll be ready for me the next year. So I just wanted to add on something. And by the time, I was a senior, still wasn't shooting a lot of threes, but I definitely was confident in my jump shot. And hence to the fact, once I got to UConn, it's so ironic that I was a slasher my whole life, get to UConn, turn into a jump shooter.
Yeah.
So, it was, but once again, that was a credit to my hard work. Especially when I got to UConn, forget about it. I had to shoot that jumper. Now you're going into land of 7-footers, 7 threes, you're not really dunking on those guys. So, you had to develop a jump. But at Trinity, it was a team effort. We had a very good team. Like I said, I had guys coming from football, had some baseball guys, Gary Lashesky on that team.
Yeah.
It was a great mesh of guys together, and we cared about each other, and that's the big thing, chemistry. And Coach Walsh built that chemistry with all of us. Especially as a freshman coming in, the seniors, they took a role of, well, I'm the senior, you're the freshman, you got to do what we do. No, it was the opposite way. Rod Salvatore, who's one of my great friends to this day, he was a senior at that time, and he was like, "Raj, you're leading us. You're the leader."
Right.
And I'm looking at him like, "No, you're the leader, Rod. No, you're the leader." So my guys gave me that confidence, early as a freshman, just to go out there and make it happen. And and that's exactly what I did. I had all the support from my players to the coaching staff to all the administrators and the school. So the school support was just overwhelming.
Right. And it's funny how, he had told you he thought you could break the scoring record. And I think when all was said and done, I think currently, and I could be wrong, Rashamel, but I think you're either 5th or 6th all time in the state of Connecticut for scoring. So, I mean, that just goes to show that not only could you break the school record, you broke some records in the state as well, which is very impressive. And it's just amazing that a kid who didn't pick up a basketball in an organized league until he was 12 years old could do these type of things. But that's just, again, a credit to, like you said, the people you played with early on, the coaches, your father being a big supporter. I mean, it all comes full circle with everything you do.
Yes, it does. It definitely does come full circle. When you're comfortable out there, even you go to the college level, when you see guys out there performing well, they're comfortable, they got the support. All their job is just to go out there and perform to the best of their ability. And I had that, from high school all the way through. Coach Walsh just gave me the support. And like I say, he gave me the ball and said, lead us, and that's exactly what I did. I'm a natural leader by instinct. I love to lead, and I lead by example. Especially in high school. Coach Nichols, Mr. Nichols, who was athletic director. Mr. Nichols also was the baseball coach. Tracy Nichols. He always used to say, man, Raj, why don't you ever talk? You never smile on a basketball court. That was his thing. He said, I've never seen him smile in high school. And when I read that article, I said, man, it kind of it resonated with me. And then I said, you know what? That's just my demeanor. I'm a no nonsense guy, and how I'm off the court, I'm the same way on the court. I'm going to attack you. I just love to compete. I just love to compete all around. And from Trinity, man, like I said, from the AD on down to the priest to Miss O'Connell, our secretary at the school, who was like a mom to everybody. Everyone, like, on our game nights, forget about it. We packed the building, the whole school's in attendance. Families in attendance. So it was a special moment there at Trinity. It was very special.
Right. And you talk about moments, Rashamel. Gatorade Player of the Year, only one person could win that. And so many great high school players around the state, the country. I mean, they're only going to pick one, and they're going to pick the best. So, I mean, for you to be chosen that, I know you were a young 17, 18-year-old kid, but that had to be just a great feeling for you to think, wow, here I am, and I'm high school Gatorade Player of the Year. I'm sure to this day it's something you still appreciate.
Oh man, those accolades, you can never just take those for granted, because when when a committee is, voting on who's who, and when they select you, that's saying a lot, that's saying that they respect you as an individual. They respect what you do on the basketball court, respect what you're doing in the classroom. So it just, it speaks volume all around the board of, how they looked at like I said, how they looked at me as a youngster, as a player, as a student, someone that was definitely intertwined in the community. I used to go around and, speak to the middle school kids during the DARE program. So, they knew those things about me. And, and it was a great honor to be named, the Gatorade player. And, not only just in Connecticut, but New England.
Yeah.
And I could tell you right now, there were a man, Wayne Turner, who played at Kentucky. He was there up in Massachusetts, at that time. Randall Jackson, who played at Florida State, he was up in Mass at the time. So there was some great competition for me to get that award. And like I said, it just speaks volume, of the work that I was putting in. And I wasn't even thinking about winning the award, to be honest with you. I just worked so hard, and whatever comes from my work, I accept it.
Right. So talk to me a little bit, Rashamel, about how you were recruited by UConn, Coach Calhoun, and keep in mind, before you got there, UConn had made the Final Eight that year. They had really knocked on the door, and they had been knocking on the door for a few years.
Yeah.
They really were starting to establish themselves as one of the best teams in the country. So just talk to me about how it all came about.
Well, like I said, from my freshman year, I remember seeing Coach Calhoun, Coach Dickerman, Coach Lato. Coach Hobbs wasn't there yet, but definitely Coach Dickerman, Coach Lato, Coach Calhoun. I see all three of them. Sometimes I see two of them. Sometimes I see one as a freshman. And, it was times where they would come to my practices. And, I'm like, wow, I don't see no other coach here at my practice. So right there alone put UConn ahead of a lot of schools, because when you're coming to my practice just to see me practice, that's letting me know that you want me.
Right.
Not only that, conversations we had on the phone. I was highly prepared. Coach Walsh Mr. Nichols, they prepared me very well for that moment. They gave me some questions to ask these coaches. And my number one question to these coaches was, where do I fit in? I know you're recruiting a lot of guys. Where am I at on your recruiting list? And when you hear you're the number one guy we want, that speaks volume. Once again, you're our first option. If we don't get you, we're going for someone else. You're our first option.
Right.
I asked a lot of coaches that. I got that from a few coaches. Calipari told me I'm his first option. But once again, he wasn't coming to my practices. He came to a few games, but wasn't coming to my practices. I would go up to UConn, watch games. Me and Mr. Tracy, Mr. Nichols and I would go up and watch games. Coach Walsh and I, we would go watch UConn games. I remember, I think my first game that I watched in person at Gamble was the Florida State, UConn versus Florida State, when Florida State had Bobby Sura, Sam Cassell,
Charlie Ward,
and they had Anthony Dobart. They actually beat UConn by 25 that game.
Wow. Yeah.
Home at Gamble. And, to know how we play in Gamble and to see that victory, once I signed with them, I thought about that. I said, man, I'm glad I wasn't on the team that year, because to go back into that locker room, getting destroyed at home, I already know how coach was in that locker room. So I said, man, I'm glad I wasn't on that team, because I could never recall a time we got beat by 20 at home. You know? So, so like I say, like from a freshman early on, they were there. I was seeing them, and that's what really stuck with me when it came down to making my decision. I'll give you another little thing. When they started making the home visits, I remember Calipari came into my home. Now, mind you, at this time, I'm a senior.
Yeah.
I'm living with my grandmother in Port Chester. So when they came into the house, my grandmom's is there, my dad is there, and my aunt was there. And Calipari put his tape in, introducing me in the lineup. It was, forget about it. It was sweet. I'm like, man, he's really putting it on right now. You're going to be the A-10 rookie of the year. You're going to average 15. You're going to start. I can see you and Marcus Camby right now doing things. He just hyped it up. And I'm like, man, okay. I tell you, as soon as he left, my grandmother said to me, she said, I wouldn't go there if I was you. I looked at my grandmother. I said, why? She said, he just sounds like a car salesman. And I looked at her. I was like, okay. Literally 2 days later, Coach Calhoun comes in, and no tape. He didn't have no tape. He just came in and said, listen, you are first option. He said, I got a guy by the name of Ray Allen there. And he says, if you want to see any court time with him, you're going to have to come in and bust your tail just to see a few minutes. And, once he started talking like that, that's how my dad talks. My dad is one of those guys, he's a realist. He's not going to feed you anything. He's going to tell you the truth. And when he left, my grandmother said, literally, that's the guy you need to sign with.
Wow.
Yep. She said to me, she said, that's the guy you need to sign with right there, because he has your best interests. He didn't promise you anything. He said, if you come in and work hard, you may play. And that's what he can't. He told me that at my house. He said, if you work hard, you may play. Not even you work hard, you're going to get minutes. You may play, because I got a guy there by the name of Ray Allen. So hearing that, it was like, okay, and I was, I'm already educated, and I'm already knowing for the things to listen to. And like my grandmother, she was right. Coach Cal, he put some things together, made it look good, whereas Coach came in and just gave me the real deal. And make a long story short, 2 weeks after Coach Cal came to my house, he leaves and goes signs with the New Jersey Nets to become their head coach.
Yeah.
Yep. So that kind of made my decision even that much easier. And at the time, I think it was just Boston College left, Florida State, and Indiana. And once I really narrowed it down, I said, man, I really can't see myself playing in Florida, because, I knew at an early age. I didn't want too much fun in the sun. I didn't want that.
Right.
That's why I didn't go to Florida. I knew that at an early age. I said, nah, I can't go to Florida. I probably wouldn't even concentrate on my books if I go to Florida. So you know what? Let me just go up here to UConn stores and just really hone on my craft. And that's why I chose UConn, because of Coach Calhoun, how real he is, how honest he is. He'll tell you like it is. He's not going to feed you anything just to say it. Everything he
Right.
says is with a purpose.
Right. And, he had to really think early on that you were a very good player because in practice, he had you guard Ray Allen all the time. So you're guarding the best player on the team and arguably one of the best players in the country. So for you, even though I'm sure like the first few weeks were tough because you're not in high school anymore and coach is going to be hard on you, you had to feel good when you walked out of practice every day because you said to yourself, you know what? Coach has me guarding the best player on the team. So that says something about me.
Actually, before the season even started, as soon as I graduated in 1995, it was like probably June 15th or something. I was at UConn June 25th.
Wow.
Taking classes. Coach was big on the guys taking summer classes just to get a head start, before the season start, before things get crazy. So I'm up there, June, playing with Kevin Ollie, Ray Allen, Travis Knight, Scott Burrell would come by, Danielle will come by, Donnie Marshall will come by. So as before the season started, this is who I'm playing against in the field house. It would be like myself, Ricky Moore, Antrick Kalaber, my guy Sam Funches, and I think probably a walk-on. That was our five. So we're going against Ray Allen, Kevin Ollie, Marshall, Danielle Marshall, and Scott Burrell. That's who we're playing against every day for like 4 to 5 hours.
Doesn't get any better than that. That's for sure.
Better than that. So by time October 15th rolled around, I was very confident. I was highly confident because, in those summer runs at the field house, I got Ray pretty good. Of course, he was Ray Allen. He was Jesus Shuttleworth. But I had some great games in that field house. So coming into the season, I was feeling good about myself. And everybody already knew that I was a hell of a defender. And my coach made me guard Ray because he knew I ripped Ray's jersey probably 10 times throughout the year, chasing him off them Travis Knight screens. And, I get hit and I'll grab onto his jersey and just rip his jersey off his back. And coach likes stuff like that. He likes when we get physical. And, I made it hard for Ray, and he'll tell you, he'd be like, man, Raj, you prepared me well. You prepared me very well for all of these games. So by the time Ray got in the game, they weren't guarding him like how I was guarding him. Like I'm literally cutting him up. Like I have battle wounds. He gave me 7 stitches in my mouth one time.
Oh, man.
He got tired of me ripping his jersey. I'm leaving scratch marks all across his back. So one time he kind of waited for me because he could have been and scored, hit the jumper. I got caught up in like 3 screens. He waited for me. And as I got in him, I'm hitting him. He just quick pulled through. Bust my whole open.
Wow. That's crazy.
And then he dunked on me after that.
But what a first year you had. I mean, just being a part of that team because one thing that UConn struggled to do was after they won that Big East tournament in 1990, they could not get over the hump and win another one. And I'll never forget that game against Georgetown in 1996. Not a lot of scoring. You guys had an off night, but you didn't. Ray Allen hit the winning shot towards the end. It kind of fell in the hoop. I think it was 48-47. And I mean, just talk about the excitement because I mean, that was something UConn needed to do. They had to win another Big East tournament because they had to get over. I felt like if they didn't get over that hump, they were never going to win down the road.
I'll tell you that play. Once when we get together with the UConn guys on that team, we always rehash those last moments of that game. Coach drew up the play. We had Rudy Johnson, who was a great baseline jump shooter. And the whole night, every time Ray would drive, literally Georgetown would just put 5 guys on Ray. So, coach said, Ray, you got the ball. We know they're going to collapse on you. Please hit Rudy, because Rudy's going to hit that little baseline jumper right there. They're leaving him wide open all night. Out of the huddle, never forget, Rudy goes to Ray. He grabs him and says, you better not pass me that ball. So he said, you better shoot that basketball. Literally, he said that to him. And Ray looked at him. He looked at Ray. That's why when you see that play, Ray literally, he looks to the corner. He looked at him.
Yeah.
He looked at him, and Rudy was like, don't give me that ball. And at the last second, he turns around and hit that little kiss off the glass, toilet bowl. Game over.
Yeah, and Ray had an off night that night.
Well, I wouldn't even call it an off night. When you got guys like Boubacar R, who was he was a Dennis Rodman. I'm going to be honest with you. When it came to playing man-to-man defense, he was like Dennis Rodman. He can guard anybody. And my year with Ray, we played them twice that year. They demolished us down in Georgetown.
Yeah.
Allen Iverson had a triple-double that game. And once again, Boubacar R did a great job on Ray down there. And once again, he knew how to guard Ray because he was just extremely physical with him. But that last play, Ray that last play showed me how great Ray was as a college player.
Yes, yeah. He definitely was. And the unfortunate thing was you knew he had to go pro. You knew you were going to lose him because I really felt if he came back his senior year, that UConn team could have really made some noise and won that national championship because, they were knocking on the door, like I said, and just losing him was so unfortunate, but you knew it was going to happen.
Yep. They thought he was going to leave the year before.
Yeah.
It was talks that, he probably would have got drafted to Philly that year. But, they was really big on Jerry Stackhouse, and that's who they ended up going with, Jerry Stackhouse. So I guess, once he knew that kind of propelled him to come back to school for another year. And it was a great decision he made because he went 5 the next year to Milwaukee.
Yeah, he definitely did. And just a great player, had a great NBA career. Yep. But let me ask you, Rashamel, at times during your career at UConn, there were definitely highs and there were some lows as well. I know there were times where you weren't getting the playing time I think you would have hoped, but you always did what was right for the team. And I could think about your junior year in that Big East tournament when what's-his-face had went down and Freeman had went down, and you scored about 17 or 18 points in that game and really helped them win. So, you, even though, again, every player is disappointed when they're not on the court because they want to be on the court, but you were always going to do what was right for the team. And we were talking about the Mets before, and I was thinking about the Yankees in '96 when Charlie Hayes was getting a little more playing time in that World Series than Wade Boggs was. But Boggs did whatever Joe Torre asked him to do. And that's the type of player you were as well. You weren't ever going to rock the boat. You were going to do whatever Coach Calhoun asked you to do.
Well, Coach made me the captain my sophomore year, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
At the D1 level. If you go around the nation right now and do a survey, I don't think there are no sophomores that are captains at their respective Division I, program. So that was just the leadership that Coach saw in myself. And once again, when from my sophomore year, having a great start of my sophomore year, leading the team in scoring, then getting hurt, that kind of really what derailed me my junior year. Because as I got hurt the end of my middle of my sophomore year, I missed about 6-7 games, and we lost a lot of those games.
Yeah.
And as a major Division I program, Coach had to fix it, and by him fixing it, he went out and got a great player in Khalid Al-Amin.
Yeah.
Coach needed some more weapons. And once I saw Khalid, he and I. That's one of my favorites. We're like brothers to this day. Every time he's up in New York, Connecticut, I'm the first person he called. So when I seen him first play, I fell in love with him. I said, man, this is the guy they brought in? Okay, I like this. And me and him, like I say, we were building a rapport. As soon as he came in, for some reason, he just clicked to me. You
Yeah.
know, he lived on the 6th floor. We lived in the same dorm. He lived on the 6th floor. I lived on the 3rd floor. So he lived with Suleiman Wan. That was his roommate. Jake Bosco was my roommate. So,
Yeah.
you know, he used to come down. I'd be like, where's Sue? Oh, nah, I'm hanging with you today, Ross. So, like I say, I formed a real brotherhood with him. So once it was his time to shine, you know, there's no hating, no hater in my blood whatsoever. You know, I know if he's doing well, the team's going to do well. Therefore, it's going to make us all look good. You know, and then plus, if you know Coach Calhoun's system, it's not about who starts the game, it's who's finished the game.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's about who's finishing. And you know, Coach Calhoun's the way he sub. You know, he'll put somebody in. The starters can start the game. If you get beat on defense, you hear that horn and
Yeah.
to the game. You're like, hold on, what's going on? You know, so I that was already embedded. So I didn't get caught up on who's starting, who's not starting, because I knew I was going to play. You know, whether I got 10 minutes, whether I got 20 minutes, I just had to be patient. You know, and that's what it came down to, having patience. And like you say, you know, Kevin Freeman goes down in the tournament. Think about it. They had to throw me at the power forward slot.
Yeah.
You know, I'm playing a power forward. And Eaton Thomas, I'll never forget, you know, he played with the Washington Wizards, 6'11". You know, I
Yeah.
think
Big guy. Yeah.
I had 18 and 10 that game. And, you know, it didn't matter to me because that was just who I was. Coach could put me anywhere. You put me at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to play that position. I'm going to play it to the best of my ability. And plus, we are up and down team. We're a fast breaking team. So that was just a smart move on Coach part to put me at power forward because he knew I was going to outrun everybody.
Right.
As soon as that ball gets shot, if I'm not getting a rebound, I'm the first one down the floor. And you could just vividly see Khalid throwing me, you know, full court passes. Ricky hit me with full court passes, easy layups. You know, that's how you start breaking teams down. You start getting a couple easy baskets, you start breaking them down. Then getting the half court system, you know, half court set. You know, I know I can't shoot no jump hooks over these 6'11", and you know, so I'm just using my quickness. You know, I get it. You know, with a quick pump fake, one dribble, try to use the rim for protection. So a lot of reverses. You know, just once again using that knowledge those old school guys taught me years ago on, you know, forget how big a guy is. It's outsmart him. And that's what I had to do. Outsmart him.
Right. And then to be selected to the All Big East tournament team that year, because after coming back from your injuries and again, never giving up, even though like you went through, like I said, some tough times, you still worked your way back. So to be selected to that team, that had to be a great feeling for you.
That was an honor, you know, because every year the Big East tournament falls on my birthday. So to go down to New York City, I had a bunch of Port Chester people in the house that night. And, you know, to get that award around my birthday, actually, it was March 9th. So it was the day after my birthday. That was the best birthday present ever, you know. You know,
Right.
I had a great tournament that year, you know, starting with the St. John's, you know, to the Syracuse. You know, I just had a great tournament. It was my last year, you know. Ricky and I, we just said, you know, Raj, it's our last go round. Everything from here on, I mean, we were already leaving everything on the floor, but you know, he said this Big East tournament, going into the NCAA tournament, we just got to turn it up a notch. You know, we got to leave everything on the floor, and that's how, you know, Ricky and I, you know, went out our senior year.
Right.
And you can see, look at Ricky, you know, against that Duke game. Forget about it. He set the tone in that game.
Right. And Raj, you talk about the 99 team, but the 98 team, I really felt paved the way for that 99 team because you guys win the Big East, you make the Elite Eight, you play a very good North Carolina team, you almost knock them off. And it's like that team had such brotherhood that year, and then it carried over into the 99 season. And I was thinking about this too. One of the players that you guys added for 99, he also, in a lot of ways, followed you because you were the best player at Trinity Catholic, the best player in the state, and he would go on to be the best player in the state the following 2 years, and that was Edmund Saunders.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, he played a pivotal role on that UConn team in 99. So, I mean, a lot. That's why I really feel like you guys won because you guys were a close-knit group.
We had literally, we can put two different starting lineups in any game at any given time. We were probably 11 deep that year. Like I said, to have 11 guys you can turn to at any moment, a lot of coaches don't have that luxury. I can tell you, after that 98 loss to Carolina, and down there, and we were in North Carolina. Was it Charlotte? No, Greensboro. Excuse me. We're down in. That's a home game for North Carolina.
Yeah, yeah.
And I could vividly remember after that game, we're in the locker room, we're upset, and coach, he took a different approach. He didn't come in and scream at us and give it to us. No, he just came in and said a couple words. Remember this feeling. Remember this feeling right here, because next year we're gonna win this thing. That's what he said.
Yeah.
He said that in '98. He said, just remember this feeling, because he said, I'm not gonna sleep this summer, and I hope you don't sleep this summer. That's what he said. And usually he'll give us 2 weeks off. We didn't even take 2 days off. Guys were in the gym probably the next day when we got back on campus, shooting, working with Joe Sharp, who was our trainer at the time, getting our bodies right. Just we were preparing right after that Carolina loss. And when we came into the season, 99, we were ready. We were ready. We were focused.
Right. And talk about a game to get to the Final Four finally, because I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw the name Gonzaga, I said, UConn's finally going to get in. No problem, no sweat. But boy, what a game it was that Saturday afternoon. It was not easy at all. It was a tough game, but I think the fact that you guys pulled it out told me that you guys could be dangerous these next 2 games, because you needed to get in the Final Four. And I felt like once that team got in the Final Four, they said, you know what? We're going to win this thing because we were meant to do this. That's how I felt as a fan.
Well, to be honest, we felt from day one, October 15th, that this was our year. And that was the theme that year. This is our year. If we lost 2 games that year, if I'm not mistaken. We lost to Pitt and we lost to Miami at home.
Right.
And like I say, those 2 games are kind of, we let those games go. We should have won. We should have beat Pitt down there, but they had a good Vonteego Cummins. But other than that, each collectively, I mean, from Rip Hamilton down to E.J. Harrison, we were ready. It was just a mental thing. The chemistry was there. It just came to a collective group. And going into that Gonzaga game, the whole key was during the tournament was survive and advance.
Yeah.
Survive in advance. Just survive this game, whether it's a 20-point win, whether it's a 10-point win, 1-point win. Let's survive and let's get to the next game. And that whole year, obviously, Duke was number 1 that whole year. We were number 2 right under him that whole year. And we felt we were the best team that whole year. We just knew it. We knew that nobody worked out like us. We knew that nobody practiced like us. We just had a lot of things that we knew that a lot of schools were not doing. And it proved evident when it came down to that tournament. It proved it. Just our style of play just overwhelmed teams. And then, Gonzaga games coming down to the wire. It's who has something left in their tank to get it done. And down the stretch, we had something left in our tank, and that's why we walked off the floor with that win.
Right, and I'll tell you what. I mean, let's talk about the national championship game, because I mean, Ricky Moore to me was always a good player at UConn, but a lot of the so-called experts never looked at him as like this big-time player. But let me tell you, that defensive gem he put on that night, I mean, that was the key to me in the whole game, because it shut Duke down. It took them right out of their element, and that's just a great coaching job by the coaching staff, because I think even Coach K said, I got out-coached that night, which is very rare. But he did get out-coached by Coach Calhoun that night. And, I mean, everything just went right. And, I mean, what a game. It went back and forth. And, I mean, it was just unbelievable.
Well, I could tell you with Ricky, Ricky had an incentive going into that game. Number 1, William Avery was his backcourt mate in high school.
Yeah.
So just imagine that. You're playing against a guy that you helped raise coming up in high school. So you have probably half of Georgia, Augusta, Georgia in the stands. So he has something to prove. Obviously, like you just said yourself, ESPN had William Avery, a much higher ranked point guard than Ricky Moore.
Yeah.
Just look at their team, Duke team. I think they're starting 5 plus 2 off the bench. Got drafted in the first round that year. After that game. Whereas with us, Rip Hamilton got drafted, Jake got drafted, Khalid, he came back to school, and that was it. We only had 2 guys there to their 7. But our heart. And let me share this story with you. This is going to be a good one. This gave us a little bit more incentive to even go out there and really beat them up. The night before, we're in our hotel room. We're just sitting there, the whole team. We're just watching ESPN, just talking right before bedtime. And ESPN flashed to a gas station. This is about 11:30. They flashed to a gas station in Durham, North Carolina. And within this gas station, they had newspapers stacked up to the ceiling, T-shirts, hats, everything said Duke wins national championship. And they were selling this stuff already.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget, Ricky Moore, literally, he jumps up, slams the TV off. Get out, because me and him, we were roommates in a hotel. So he shut the TV off, kicked everybody out. Rash and I going to bed, and y'all should go to bed too. We got some business to handle in the morning. And that's exactly what it was. So, we just felt disrespected. I'm going to be honest, because, everybody thought, obviously we were the underdogs.
Right.
On paper, you see 7 NBA guys, 2 NBA, the numbers are going to go with Duke. So we knew that only people in that building that was rooting for us was our fans and everybody on that bench. So, we just, like I said, we felt disrespected, and we wanted to show the world. That's why Collegiate came up with that phrase, let's shock the world right now.
Yeah. And, the great thing about it, Rashamel, I was thinking about this too, which I'm sure you realized, but you probably didn't realize it then. If you don't hit that 3-pointer in that game, you guys don't win that game. So it's the little things that happen because you don't score those 3 points. The team doesn't win the game. And that's what I mean. Everybody on that team, from the number 12 to number 1, everybody contributed on that team, did something to help that team win. And I mean, one of the things that I really was happy about is that, because again, we always view you as a Connecticut guy. You played school there. Is that those last 5 seconds he put you in for defensive purposes? You're on the court, and I'll just never forget that image when the one shining moment's ending, and you're holding the ball, and there's just tears of joy. I mean, I still get goosebumps talking about it, and I know for you, it just had to be surreal.
At that particular moment, I'm just cheering my butt off on the sideline. I'm like, okay, I'm a cheerleader right now. So, call that timeout, Raj, get in. And before I got in, he said, I don't want him to breathe.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, you could see him saying that too. Yeah.
I don't want him to breathe. And that's why I guarded him the way I guarded him. Obviously my guys were right behind me. And my own thing is he was not getting a 3-point shot off.
Yeah.
He was not. We're not going to overtime. We're going to end this right here. And that was our mentality.
Right. And you think about this too, talk about El Amin. He didn't have such a great game against Gonzaga, but he really had a terrific game against Duke. And hitting those 2 foul shots was key. Because I'm telling you right now, if it's a 2-point game, Duke can just set up a play and they could tie that game up, or they could win. And him hitting those 2 shots was huge, in my opinion.
Huge. In my opinion, I say when I look at all the great point guards that came through college, forget just at UConn, I rank Khalid up there with the greats. When I say this guy was a floor general, he was a floor general. He did things that I've never seen players do before. People, made fun of him because of his weight at times. But when I say he was fast, he was strong, shoot the lights out the ball, had eyes in the back of his head. He was actually a coach on the floor. So, like I said earlier, to sit to a guy like that, I applaud him. It's not like I'm sitting to a guy who I'm like, man, I'm better than this guy. Like, what is coach thinking? Like, come on. Like, nope, it was none of that with him because I knew everybody knew he was special coming in.
And the great thing about it is, Rashamel, when you guys won that championship, it started a trend because now UConn has won 3 more since that. They have 4. They're one of the few teams that could say they have 4 national championships.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously you have the great UCLA teams,
Yep.
the great Duke teams.
Mhm.
Obviously, I think Duke has 5. So they're only behind Duke in by one title. And Duke forever was a premier, and they still are a premier program in the country.
Yes.
So, I mean, this UConn program, and really, I mean, whether people like Coach Calhoun, and I know there's people that don't for whatever reason, the guy, he can coach with anybody, and he's one of the greatest college coaches of all time, in my opinion.
Oh, big, by far one of the best. For a guy to just take over the program, was it 86, 84, 85, 86, he took over UConn, a program that had no history,
Yeah.
Obviously they had history, but no major history within the college basketball world. And to come in and turn that program, turned it upside down and inside out, and to make it a national championship caliber program, that's special. Only special guys do stuff like that. You just take Coach K. Duke has always been up there. The Carolinas, they always been there. You look at the Indianas, Bob Knight, those schools, the UCLAs, they have had history since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. UConn has never had that history.
Right.
So Coach made that history, and I can tell you right now, every player that played for him has the utmost respect for him. The utmost respect, because what everybody sees in the game on TV, that's just a guy who loves competing. You see the cursing. That's just a guy who loves competing. If they was to mic us up on the court, you're going to hear the same stuff from us.
Yeah.
You're going to hear the same stuff from us. It just so happened the fans that sit behind us, and, they're like, man, how could he talk to these guys like that? Well, you know what? To talk to anybody in a way that may be unfavorable, you have to have a relationship with them.
Right.
Call somebody out their name, you got to have a relationship with them. And you got to really make sure that that person that you're talking to like that understands that you have their best interests at heart, and they have to understand that. And, it's like your parent, it's like your dad. Your dad can talk crazy to you. Yeah, you're going to have, your face is going to be like, why is he talking to me like that? But once you, settle down, you calm down, it's all love. It's all love,
And he's always given back to his players too, because obviously Kevin Alley came back and helped him, and he even gave you a position for a while to be a coach so you could learn and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm sure what you're doing today as a head coach is because of the lessons you learned from him.
Not just once, twice,
Yes, yeah.
2004, when, he made me the student assistant. Well, let's just take it back before, he was very instrumental in me coming back, number one, to finish my degree.
Yeah.
When I was ready, he's the first person I called. And, he said, really, you want to do this summer? I said, yeah, coach. He said, listen, let me call our academic advisor, Dr. Ted Tagan, who was there when I was there. He still was around in 2004. So he said, you know what, Ross, let me call Doc right quick and let's get on this. And I'll give you a call back in a few days. He called me back in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Ross, we got you enrolled in school already. I was like, damn. I said, that fast? He said, Doc already got it done already. I said, okay, I need housing. He said, give me a couple more days, couple more hours. He called back, said, we got the apartment for you.
Wow.
So he was like, I'll see you up here on Monday. I ain't gonna never forget. It was like a Wednesday. He was like, class start on Monday. I said, I'll see you on the weekend. I'm gonna come up early. So I came up there on the weekend, and he said, well, I said, coach, I want to coach. He said, well, you're my student assistant. I flew the game, I was on the bench every game. And like I said, that gave me my first taste of coaching, not only first taste of coaching, I'm coaching Rudy Gay.
Yeah.
Charlie Villanueva, Marcus Williams, Hilton Armstrong, all those guys drafted first round. So he gave me that start. And then fast forward 2017, 2018, You know, he came out of retirement and
coached at St. Joe's. Yeah,
coached at St. Joe's, and as soon as I heard, actually, I was reading it. To be honest with you, I'm reading the newspaper because I haven't spoke to coach in a while. I didn't know he came out of retirement. So I'm reading. I forgot. I don't know if it was the New Haven Register or was it the Stamford Advocate. One of them papers I was reading, and it was like Coach Calhoun is coming out of retirement to start a Division III program. So when I read that, I immediately called him. I said, Coach, I just seen you coming out of retirement. That's great, but I want to help you. And I said to him, I said, Coach, I don't even want to dime. I just want to come up and help.
Yeah.
So he said, come see me tomorrow. Literally, he was already up in the office. Said, come see me tomorrow. Took a ride up to West Hartford, went in his office, and this is a true story. As I'm sitting there, the AD comes in. Coach, he was like, I know this guy. Coach is like, yeah, this is my captain of my 99 team. He was like, yeah, I remember that face. Coach is like, yeah, get used to him. He's going to be my assistant here.
Wow. And I mean, that's the thing that I really respect about him, because it tells me that, sure, he wants to win national championships. Who doesn't? He wants to win, but he loved his players too.
Yeah.
And he's never forgotten, because when you guys won in 99, what I really enjoyed was he mentioned Chris Smith. He mentioned Scott Burrell. He didn't just say it was the 99 team. It started a long time ago when these guys built the foundation for it. So I always thought that was a classy move on his
part. But that's
part.
him. But that's coach. That's coach right there. You know, it's a process. You just can't start the process at 1997 or 1998. You know, like you said, the process started with Smitty coming in. You know, get big time recruits. You know, bringing in Donnell Marshall. You know, bringing in the Scott Burrells, bringing in the, those are the guys that we look up to. You know, when you talk a guy on that 99 team, you're gonna hear the same names keep being brought up. You're gonna hear the Kevin Ollie's. Kevin Ollie was the one that used to work out with us in the off season.
Yeah.
He was the one that, I mean, if Ray and them wasn't there, you better believe Kevin Ollie was up there.
And I just feel the need to say this. I don't want it to turn political, but to me, Kevin Ollie did a great job as coach. He won a national title, and I really think at times he wasn't always treated the best. And to me, people love to say, well, some people as critics, it wasn't his team. You have to win 6 games in that tournament. That's not easy to do. It's his team that year. He won that national title. And, he was always one of my favorite UConn people.
He is a big brother. And, it's ironic. When you look at, for example, look at Steve Nash with the Brooklyn Nets right now. Great guy. Has, in my opinion, probably two of the best players in the world on his team. And he couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
He couldn't get it.
It's hard. I mean, it is very hard to do.
It's extremely hard. But to see KO was an assistant to coach bringing those players in. So people don't even think about that. KO was right there making home visits, having dinner with these guys, trying to bring them in. So trust me, he put in his work as well. So they respected him. And that's the one thing you have to have these players do. Buy into what you're saying, buy into your system, and they have to respect you.
Right.
Because once they respect you, forget about it. You can get anything you want from them. Hard work, they're going to give you that naturally, and that's the thing that coach does. He gets that respect. KO, they get that respect, and players, Shabazz, he's going to do what he do, because they love their coach. And they don't want to, we don't want our coach to, we just want to, just make our coach proud,
Right.
And because we know the work that they put in, forget about, my dorm, if you know anything about UConn, I lived in Alumni. Alumni was probably 100 yards to the right of Gamble. So there's times where I'm walking early in the morning, 7 o'clock, going to get breakfast. I see coach driving into the gym. There's times where we came from games 11 o'clock at night, midnight. All the other sisters are going home. Coach is office watching videotape. For the next game, he's in his office till 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
So his work ethic, I stole that. I ain't say I stole it from him, but I looked at him. I saw the things that he did, and I watched him. I watched him, and I watched him well. And a lot of the stuff that he did, it rubbed off on me.
And let's talk about that. How has life been for you as a head coach? I mean, it's obvious that you've given back like so many former players do, and I believe you're coaching at Greenwich High School,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
girls team. Yep. So just talk about that. I think you completed 2 seasons so
No,
far.
this was my
Oh,
first.
just
Yep,
so
yep.
talk about season 1. How'd it go?
No, it was a very good season, compared to the previous season, the 2021 season. They won, I think, 4 games that year, 2021. So, the morale was definitely down at Greenwich. And when I came in, I saw what we had. I said, man, I have some very good guards, a lot of multi-changeable players that can play the 4, the 5, maybe can step out to the 3. So all I really went in and did is just really boost their confidence. Something Coach Calhoun would do. Um,
Right.
if any, people who know Coach Calhoun, he's the ultimate motivator. Like if Coach would have you believing you could literally run through the brick wall,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he would give you that much confidence, and you would attempt it a few times until you realize you can't break through it. But just that confidence that he gives you, the resources, forget about it. Every game, literally, we're watching video. We're breaking down every possession on offense that they do. So there's no surprises. Defensively, we're breaking it down. Every team does. I don't care who it was. We spend 2-3 hours just watching film. So just to prepare was something that I took to the high school level, preparing for high school levels. Then this year we were 12-8 this year. So
Wow. Nice.
yep, 12-8 this year. We qualified for the FCX. We lost in the first round to a very big and physical Fairfield Ludlow team out of Fairfield. Went on to the states. Lost in the second round to actually the number 1 team in the state, Enfield.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So, like I say, it was overall, it was a great season. It was a great season. All the girls they brought in, they played their butts off, and that's all I can ask. I can't ask for no more. All I got to tell them, I told them every practice. There's going to be some days, your jumper is going to be there. It's going to be some days you can't hit the side of the backboard, but
Right.
you have to find something else within this game to get us over the hump. Whether that's just, okay, let me just defend this game. Let me be the best cheerleader this game. Let me get on the offensive blast this game. So I try to just teach them that it's more to this game than just trying to score buckets. You can do so much more. And I always use Dennis Rodman for that, for one of my key
Yeah.
points where I said, look, you got a guy who made the Hall of Fame and probably averaged 6 points for his whole career.
Yeah. And there were some games he didn't even score, and he was fine with that. Yeah.
Didn't even look at the rim.
Yeah.
Didn't look at the rim. But one thing you knew he was going to do is grab 25 rebounds, and he was going to guard whoever he had to guard, whether it was the point guard, shooting guard, small forward, center. It didn't matter. And I instilled that within my girls, or any team that I'm coaching. I instill those same values. Like, this game is more than just trying to score who can score 40 points. If you can give me 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 assists, that's a fabulous game. And then I always used to tell him, because Coach used to do this as well. He can say, I don't even got to watch the game. I can just look at the stat sheet and see how active you were.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, what you mean you can just look at the stat sheet and see how active we were? As a youngster, you like, what do you just look at a piece of paper and not even watch the game? But I see what he meant. Because if you look at the stat sheet and you see a kid had 10 points, 8 rebounds, 4 offensive, 4 defensive, 3 steals, even though they don't count deflections, probably had 10 deflections. You can bet your top dollar that player was extremely active. And
Right.
extremely active. Just look at their numbers. The numbers don't lie.
Exactly. Rashamel, let me ask you this. What has been the most rewarding thing to you about the game of basketball, whether it's victories, life lessons? what would you say is, if you had to pick one thing, what did you benefit most from it?
Well, just the overall quality of life. Like I said, coming from, if you know anything about Mount Vernon, it's Mount Vernon is a Hartford, is a New Haven, is a Bridgeport. That's the similar background. Where I come from. 90% African American. High crime areas. So to make it out of that, speaks volume. I can tell you right now. I have a lot of friends that I grew up with, still know to this day, that didn't make it out. I have a lot of friends who were murdered. I have a lot of friends who are in prison. And for me to navigate my way through that was my biggest accomplishment.
Right. Well, Rashamel, this was a lot of fun. Number one, congratulations on a great career in this
Thank
game
you.
of basketball. That's still going on today. I
Yeah.
love that you're giving back. I think that's a great thing. But
Yes.
number two, just congratulations on the type of person you are, because to me, as good of a basketball player as you were, you seem like an A-plus person. And I think that's the most important thing. And I really do applaud you for everything you're doing. And
Thank you.
we will always remember that 99 team. And I'm so thankful that you got to be a part of that. So congratulations on just a wonderful career.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Like I say, it's a process, like from my freshman year, being around Coach Mike Walsh, being around Tracy Nichols, Coach Jack Smith, just those type of guys, high class, high quality guys, no nonsense guys. Then going to college, being around a Coach Calhoun, a Tom Moore, who was a hell of a coach. Coach Carl Hobbs, Dave Lato, Coach Dickerman. Being around guys like that, they're gonna rub off on you. They're gonna
Right.
and just seeing, let's talk about Coach Calhoun, looking at him being our head leader, and just how he conducted himself, on and off the floor. He always was, our mouthpiece. Always spoke up for us. Like I said, he worked us hard, but at the same time, we knew everything that he did on the other side for us. And like I said, he had our best interests at heart. And like I said, Hall of Fame guys, and if you can't learn from Hall of Fame guys, you need to change your career.
Right. Well, I do appreciate you coming on, and thank you again. And
Mike, you
best of luck going forward.
definitely, Mike, appreciate you for having me on. Anytime you want to do this again, just reach out. I have a lot more stories for you.
Sounds good. Well, folks, there you have it. You just got to see a guy that I started following in the early 90s. I was a big fan of high school
Yep.
basketball, and you had to be a fool if you didn't know who Rashamel Jones was. I would look in the box score. I'd see 28 points, 35 points, sometimes 40, and I'd say to myself, wow, this guy is unbelievable. And then along the way, we got to see him at UConn. You saw some of the big games that he played a part in, especially in that Big East tournament in 1998. But then, of course, the proudest moment for any UConn fan or anybody who grew up in Connecticut was seeing that great UConn team win the national title. But even more special was seeing a Connecticut guy who played high school basketball in Connecticut be a part of that, and seeing Rashamel Jones on the court those last few seconds of that national title game and seeing him just take it all in was something that none of us will ever forget. As you processed him throughout his career and you've seen what he's done, he's just a wonderful human being. You see it each and every day, and what he's given back to his town, his community, and to his former school says volumes and speaks volumes about who this guy is.